Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another virtual plant clinic with Dr. Bill Lester. Well, he's somewhere around. He might be popping in and out. He's a busy man. He he's got another event going on in the same building where Bernie is, and he's trying to set that event up while he's going to be popping on here. Um, Colby is unable to join us because nothing to do with Colby, just Hernando County itself is having computer issues. So he's unable to join us. And so it's just us volunteers. I am Lily Browning, I guess. Am I Master Gardener, Bernie?
Hi there, folks.
Yes, and we have Bernie, Master Gardener Bernie. So I guess I'm still a volunteer master gardener, and all these virtual plant clinics I'm doing, I think should count towards master gardener time. Do you get double time, Bernie, when you do master gardener clinics?
No, I don't.
You're there available, yet you are multitasking by helping other people. I think you should get double time for that. Time and a half, at least.
I had a hard time getting credit for all my time. When they went to the new computer program, the previous records weren't in computer. So I was short about 3,000 hours for a long time, but I finally got them. Been a very hectic morning, actually. I've been very busy and had people with the standard run-of-the-mill problems, a couple of lawn problems, a fellow with some avocado trees that are turning yellow, which brings me to a subject I'd like to talk about for a little bit.
Okay, let me say good morning to Buddy first. Good morning, Buddy.
Oh, good morning, Buddy. Soil test. The thing about the fellow with the avocado trees is avocados the leaves were turning yellow, and that's fairly common on a lot of plants, indicating that there's a nutritional deficiency. And so I have a copy of a plant or of a soil test, and it shows the percentage of the elements in there and the nitrogen and the phosphorus and all that. And it's a tremendous amount of information. Costs $10. You can't get anything for $10 anymore. McDonald's and a drink.
Yes, you can't get a fast food meal for $10.
No. So the big problem with these nutritional things is you never know. Maybe the pH is so far out of whack that the plant can't accept the nutrients, or maybe it just needs some fertilizer, or maybe this is dirt that's been hauled in after they built your place just to level the ground up, and it's nothing that's usable for anything. So the only way to tell that is to spend the $10. You send this little sample off. You go around and you take a little bucket and you take a couple of scoops out of one place and some scoops out of another. And, take 4 or 5 samples, shake it all up in the bucket, take a little scoop, and they give you an envelope. Put the sample in the envelope, send it off to the university. University has this fantastic machine. They take your little sample, they put it in
water, don't they?
Actually, it's called Malic. They're using Malic 3 solution, which is a standard for everybody in this industry. That and it's a very, very, very weak acid.
Okay.
And it takes the nutrients out of the soil and puts them into a liquid form, and then they take that and they have this machine that has a plasma, an electric arc thing that is at thousands of degrees, 5,000 degrees or something like that, centigrade, very, very hot. They put a drop of this liquid in, and it changes color. And by looking at all the colors and how bright they are, they can tell what elements are in there and how much of each element is in there.
Have you been to that lab since we were there together years ago?
Um, Actually, I went with Dr. Strickland
Yeah.
since then, but
But
I've been there probably 5 or 6 times. I really love touring
I
this.
know, because that's like your heaven.
Yeah, that's my kind of spot. So they put together a little form. Somebody says, "Oh, well, you tell them what the crop's going to be," and they look at it and they say, "Oh, well, that's the wrong thing for the crop. Here's the recommendation of what it would take to correct that soil so that it would be optimum for whatever crop you said." So this gentleman with the avocado trees will find out if he has a problem where the pH is wrong and the plant can't absorb the nutrients, or are the nutrients just not there? And if they aren't there, he'll get a recommendation back on how much to apply to recover the problem. And like I say, $10, you can't beat that. Of course, you
What I
got to
have,
pay to ship it up there, so it costs you maybe another $4 or $5 for shipping. But
so you have to send a check, right?
yes,
So you have to possess checks. I guess you can get a money order. A lot of people don't possess checks anymore.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, boomer. A lot of people don't
Uh,
checks anymore. It's funny because I went years with like only using a check maybe for a fundraiser or something, like that's it. But since I'm a transient person now, between living in Florida and Pennsylvania and all the back and forth, and this tiny town in Pennsylvania where I live has a borough that you have to pay once a month, your trash and sewer bill. I mean, they do take credit cards, but it just seems easier sometimes to write them a check. And I pay the county for my insurance and I send a check. It's like weird. I'm writing checks lately. Almost forgot how. But so that is an issue. If you to mail these, there's nothing to write on the form, like to put a credit card number in or anything.
no, you have to send a check.
Yeah.
But see, I'm old fashioned.
What you can do is go to your mom, give her the money, have her write the check for you, and send the soil test up.
But my belief is that if you've never had a soil test, you need to do it at least once so you have some idea of what a starting point is. The pH doesn't change very much. The nutrient level comes and goes as the amount of rain versus the amount of things that you're growing on the property. But the pH doesn't really alter that much. So
I could go and send that in and get my nitrogen tested, right?
no, that's the one they don't test. And the reason
Why? That's the major thing, Bernie. Why wouldn't they test for nitrogen?
there isn't really a good test for nitrogen that tells you whether the plant's going to be able to absorb it enough or not. The assumption is if you have a plant, you need nitrogen. You always need nitrogen. There are very, very few plants that don't have to have additional nitrogen to be happy. What? The HOC Family TV. What is HOC Family TV?
I don't know. Somebody's it's a family who's watching this via their television or something. But hello, welcome. Yes.
Yeah, well, welcome.
Yes.
If anybody has any questions on
Hernando something, maybe they can tell us who they are. Yeah.
just send your little questions in. We do better at answering.
Bernie. We still have Bernie, so we can answer any question whatsoever. Because the man who knows everything is.
I want to correct that. That's not true. I am not a flower person. I know nothing about flowers. I didn't know anything about gardening, period, when I moved to Florida. I came here. I did what everybody else does. I bought a bunch of plants at the big box store and watched them die. and I kept doing that, and I kept doing that, and if you keep doing the same thing and expect different results and they don't happen, that's the definition of something. I don't, like being nuts.
Mhm.
So out of desperation, I took a class and found out that there was some scientific basis for plants. And I enjoyed that. And I took a lot of classes, and I took the Master Gardener class.
With
And
me,
I've had a ball, and I really enjoy this. And I have become very proficient at lawn questions. Uh, I'm pretty proficient at the technical questions, uh, the soil pH and the pruning and all those kind of things, the propagation. What I can't do is identify a flower. I'm just not a flower person. So when they say Bernie knows everything, Bernie doesn't know diddly squat about flowers. So if you have a question about flowers, the
I
truth
might
is
be able to help you.
anybody but Bernie can answer it. I mean, even the simplest questions. 10-year-old kids know twice as much about flowers as I do. But it happens because I was 60 years old when I started this stuff, and had never done anything. I thought that growing a lawn was you bought a box of grass seed and you threw it out on the ground. And that works in Indiana.
Yeah, probably
It
worse in
sure doesn't
Pennsylvania
work
too.
in Florida. And
Yes.
and flowers were those things that you went to the big box store, and for like $12, you got this big tray with all these little compartments, and you put the flowers in. They'd last a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you go buy another box. And that was gardening to me. That was all I knew about it. So
And it looked great. So HOSA Family TV is Diana Cologne. That's the House of Cologne, and she watches it on her television because she's watching from our YouTube channel. So we're very happy to have her. And she has a question here. And even though it is flower related, I think there's a word in here that you're going to catch as well as I did. We have learned so much from you all. We watch many plants and lavender die too. What's
I
the
know
key
about that.
in this sentence, Bernie?
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Where does
lavender is a northern
lavender?
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's kind of like trying to grow palm trees in Alaska, growing lavender in Florida for the exact same reason you can't do it. The climate that lavender requires is not in Florida in any way, shape, or form. So
and I think it's not even so much the heat as the humidity. Lavender likes a drier type. That's
yeah,
why it grows so well. And
it
well,
would survive Mediterranean climate. It won't survive
yeah,
here.
although it grows pretty well in Washington, which is pretty humid, but maybe it's on the other side of the mountains that isn't humid. I don't know that much about Washington, but I know people will say, well, I've done it. I mean, you can have lavender as an annual for a little bit. It's not going to be a sustainable long term plant for you, unfortunately, nor are tulips, nor are daffodils, nor are, peonies. All these things are in my yard when I go home next week to Pennsylvania. And I can be happy about that because I lived 47 years here in Florida, all of my adult life. So now I get to, go play with. There's tulips waiting for me. They've already popped up. They're waiting for me. A week from today, I'll be saying hello to my tulips. So, but here in Florida, the first principle of Florida friendly landscaping is right plant, right place. It's spring here, and I'm so thrilled that I get to have two springs in my life. It's the Florida spring, and it's so funny because when you first move here, you don't feel the seasons. And I guess you have to feel the seasons here because up north, they slap you in the face. You can't miss
Yeah.
them. Here, you got to be here for a while and you got to be in tune with Florida. Then especially spring is very obvious. Spring is azaleas. Spring is early spring, late winter is camellias. Spring is blue-eyed grass. which don't have blue eyes, and that still bothers me. The little flowers are blue, they have yellow eyes. Spring is just so many different flowers that grow here in Florida. We can't grow the same thing we did up north. I mean, there's some overlap. It's like a Venn chart. There is some overlap, but that overlap, you got to put an overlap in the overlap because a lot of times it's different timing. I'll go up to Pennsylvania. They're going to wait a couple months before they even plant their petunias. Ours are going to be fading out soon. You know, we got a lot of questions building up. I have foxtail ferns that have only a few fronds left. Can they be brought back? That depends on a lot of things, doesn't it, Bernie?
Boy, it does.
Yeah. Are they in a pot? Are they in the ground? Yeah.
Are they in full sun? Are they in shady area? Ferns don't tend to do very well in full sun. That tends to stop them. So,
you have some pretty big ones right outside the building there, or you do during the warmer times. How are they doing? You're going to tell me you don't even look at them, don't you?
One thing I know is we got this really big plant right on the corner of the building, firebush. And it attacks me every time I walk around the corner of the building. So. And
the butterflies probably attack you too, right? We have learned
I should have never said
Bernie has some childhood butterfly trauma.
I made that up. That was a lie. I should have said that.
And that's and he's denying.
I got caught.
This is typical, traumatic behavior. He has some shadow work to address regarding this butterfly attack when he was a child. All right. The only thing I could say, David, is, try it. If they look dead, maybe wait a week or two. Make sure it's because they're pretty cold sensitive, aren't they, Bernie?
I'm not specific on foxtail, but ferns don't propagate in the normal.
No, they send out spores.
Right.
So I mean,
the spores generate, and then there is a sexual portion in the generation, but I would tend to think that the ferns can be brought back, but the specific thing they need is their exact living conditions.
Right. They need to be in some shade. If they're pot bound, maybe put them in a bigger pot. And then see what happens. What have you got to lose?
Maybe Teresa can get us something on
foxtail fern.
Foxtail fern.
She might be involved in that. Yeah, she might be involved in that thing that Bill's in. No, a Facebook user has a soil test that they purchased at a hardware store. Are those?
Well, I can answer that one.
Go ahead.
Absolutely, positively, without a shadow of a doubt, worthless.
Why don't you say what you really mean, Bernie?
The extension office over in Sumter County used to be tied in. We had the same director, and
up until
they decided to do pH tests at the office there. So they got one of the little sample kits, one of the little hardware type pH testers. And they could test the same sample 3 or 4 times and get different numbers. So they realized that was a problem. So they bought one of the higher quality actual pH test kits. They could not consistently come within 1 pH unit of what the university was sending out. Yeah. So if you it'll tell you the cheap kit that you get at a hardware store will tell you basically if you're acid or basic, but piece of litmus paper would do that. But as far as being an accurate test, for instance, if you want to grow Bahia grass and you have a high pH, you have a pH 7.5 or more, there's just no possible way. Bahia wants to be at 5.5. So if you get a test kit, you're at 7. The test kit says that you're 6.2. You're going to say, hey man, this thing will really work great. Well, the truth is, you could barely do it, and yet your kit said that everything was going to be fine. So, as far as a general test to tell you, one, do I have a high or low potassium content? They do that. Do I have high or low phosphorus? They'll do that. Do I have an acid or a basic pH? They'll do that. But to give you numbers that are meaningful, they will not do that. That's something that's very, very difficult.
That's kind of bringing me along, since we're talking about lawns and pH and all that. We run into this every spring from our newbies, our new residents here in Florida. And usually they do it first and ask questions later. Bernie, should I apply lime to my lawn to sweeten it like I did in Rochester or wherever I came from?
Boy, that is a tough one. If you have grass in your lawn and you have Florida soil underneath the grass, the absolute last thing you would ever want to put down is lime. And I've done this now over 20 years. And one time I had a legitimate place where you should have put lime down on soil, on the lawn.
Wow. I'm surprised you're doing that.
And it surprised me because I have always said under no circumstances should you ever use lime. And about 6 months ago, I had somebody with a 5.1 pH.
Where were they located?
I don't remember. And they had a St. Augustine lawn. And
maybe they were in a pine forest or something.
Yeah, it was that kind of a deal. They were on the edge of pine forest.
I'm thinking they were, on the edge of the Withlacoochee forest, something.
And I told them, I said, I this is it. This is the only time I've ever seen a legitimate lime recommendation. But that's not, under normal circumstances, you would never lime. If you live in a subdivision or in an area that is not completely full of pine trees, I can't imagine that you would ever see a situation where you should use lime. If you have Bahia grass, you should never, ever use lime on Bahia grass. There's no place I know of in Florida where the pH is so low that Bahia would not be happy or would be happier if you limed it. So that's my recommendation.
I'm glad that happened to you and after I retired, because if you look back on some of my videos, I have actually, sent out a challenge that if you get a soil test back that says you need to lime it, I will eat a bug.
Really? Yeah. I wonder if I can find that.
Well, that happened to you, not to me. So, and I guess we could push it if we needed to. I'm sorry. I skipped over this one. Diana has mimosa. I assume she means sunshine mimosa, starting to grow. Mimosa strigolosa. Yes. That, native plant people love to say the Latin names. Bernie and I just like to say the fun Latin names. So, Mimosa strigolosa and perennial peanut. What's that Latin name?
Ha! Do you know?
No. I guess Corey does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Latin names are, for me, if I see the Latin name, I know what plant it's talking about. I know the common name if I see the Latin name. But to ask me the Latin name, I know about maybe 10. That might be pushing it. because the people I taught when I was working are, they are like, stop throwing Latin names at us. We don't care. We just want to know, what the plants are. We want something easy to understand. Where Latin names come into play is if you work in a nursery, obviously you got to know what to order. The other time it comes into play is if it's important to know one from the other, like Hemilia potens. Do you know what that is, Bernie?
Oh.
You were just talking about it. That is the native firebush. So it's important because the native firebush and the non-native firebush are hard to tell apart in the nursery. And the non-native one doesn't attract near the amount of butterflies, so you're not getting what you want out of the native one. So if you look at the tag and it says Hemilia potens, chances are, I don't want to say you're getting the native one, because then again, hybridization has occurred. And, so sometimes it's almost impossible to tell. But
that is one of the best hummingbird plants.
Absolutely.
If you want hummers, that is a great, great plant.
It is so easy to grow, and it'll freeze back and come back. And if you're in South Florida, it won't freeze back and it'll get huge.
If it freezes back in mid-January, just go in and clean it off to the ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be frozen to the ground by then, usually.
Yeah. But the problem is you don't lose them all, unless you get a really good freeze.
Right.
And we haven't had any good freezes for a few years.
And if I remember right, my firebush it puts out new growth every year. It's not really going to grow on the old growth. So as Bernie said, go ahead and cut it back, and then by summer, you'll have a nice big bushy bush that your hummingbirds will come to, but only early in the morning when your husband who isn't working can see them and you are still working and you can't see them. But anyway, and tons and tons and tons of sulfur butterflies and bees. And they just love it. And it's really...
And I like the perennial peanut. That is a real nice replacement plant for lawn.
So is sunshine mimosa. We didn't discuss what that really is. Diana's not, she's not morning drinking. She's talking about a plant that it's in the sensitive plant family. It closes up kind of if you touch it or wind blows or anything, and it puts out these pink powder puff balls. It makes a great ground cover. Now it comes with its controversy. It becomes, what's the word I want?
Invasive.
No.
Spreads like crazy.
That's not the word I was not looking for.
Run all over your neighbor's yard, but I love it. I think it's beautiful.
Aggressive.
Those little puff balls.
It depends. If you have a lot of area that you want to cover, put down the sunshine mimosa. I know the master gardeners at the nursery think sunshine mimosa is a bad word. And it's because they wanted to put something else in this particular bed. And sunshine mimosa wanted to be the queen of the entire bed. And it would be, created a difficult situation for them. So I would say if you want it, make sure you can have it where it can... Enthusiastic. That's a word. That's a good word. It's an enthusiastic grower.
It reseeds like crazy.
Now, me in the Royal Highlands where I used to live, I couldn't get it to grow. I couldn't get it to do much of anything. My people who bought my house, maybe in a few years, they're going to be just as mad as the master gardeners at me. I don't know, but I couldn't get it to do. It wasn't enthusiastic at all for me, but it's a great plant. There's a former master gardener who's a native plant expert who uses it as a lawn. Does great. Are there some recommendations for native landscape low maintenance? We just told you some. Sunshine mimosa as a ground cover. That fire bush, make sure you get Hamelia patens, Hamiapatens. Hamelia patens, for if you want, make sure you get the native. Beautyberry. I love beautyberry. I never bought a beautyberry in my life. You can. You can go to native plant sales. You can go to the Master Gardener plant nursery and buy beautyberry. I never had to because they were growing naturally all over my yard, and I would just relocate them.
Beautyberry is a plant. The only thing I have against it is they do not grow symmetrical. So
No,
if you have them as a specimen plant, they aren't pretty. If you have them as a little grove, they're really neat
I
because
think mine pretty. Mine looked
the
pretty
berries
good.
are pretty and the plant looks good.
Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
trimmed mine. They looked pretty good, actually. I've told this story 100 times about I put a beautyberry and I drug it out of my wooded lot and put it right in front of my house over the septic tank and by a window. And it grew very enthusiastically. And I decided it wasn't a good place for it there in front of the house. I was having to prune it all the time. And so I cut it back some. And then I decided, I'm going to dig you out. So I got a shovel and I'm shoveling and I'm shoveling. And then me and the bush are dancing and dancing. It turned into a royal rumble. We were out there just, and I finally had to go get an axe to its roots to pull that thing out, having the royal rumble with this bush in my yard. And I arose the victor, put it over my shoulder, planted it in the backyard. Is any plant going to survive that? Beautyberry is. It went, fine, I'll grow right here. It is such a tough, good plant. Other native plants are beach sunflower or dune sunflower. That one is like a 3-foot tall kind of ground cover, has pretty happy little yellow flowers. That one has become so incredibly hybridized with there's a West Coast beach sunflower, and there's an East Coast beach sunflower. Native plant people used to always tell me, well, be careful, you don't get the East Coast one. And I used to be like, okay, that's very specific. And then I realized what they were saying was the East Coast one is not native. But then I did more research into it, and there's no way to. Over time and over human intervention, they have melded into each other. So just do the best you can do. Put forth the best effort. I had that sunshine mimosa in front of my house for 15 years, and it looked great. It gets a little enthusiastic. It wants to grow where nothing else wants to grow. It's called beach sunflower, dune sunflower. The cruddiest place you have in your yard, the hottest and sandiest and ickiest, that's where it wants to grow. So it would grow over the sidewalk because it preferred that to the bed, and I would have to cut it like 2 or 3 times a year off of the sidewalk. What are some other?
Another neat plant that gets overlooked, I think, is East Palatka holly.
Yeah, I love those, and that's a native hybrid, and some people get prickly about that, but it is a very nice plant.
Well, I think it's a native. They found it in East Palatka. It's only in one sex, so you can't have a male and a female East Palatka holly. You can only have females. So
yeah, so I think it is a cross. I will have to look it up. I think anything that has an X in it, it's been a hybrid with something. So it depends on how pure you want to get, with a native thing. I say right plant, right place. And there are plenty of great hybrids. There are plenty of great, well-behaved exotic plants as well. Ground, partial sun, they do take a lot of water. Was that the foxtails that Dave was talking about? Yeah, maybe put them in a little bit more shade so they don't, need as much water. They might be happier there. Corey's laughing at us. Who knows why? We're hilarious, Bernie. Here is our background producer, always helping out, Teresa. Maybe it was Bill, but it was probably Teresa. Put up the Foxtail Fern publication. And as Bernie always tells you, don't try to sit there and memorize this. edis.ifas.ufl.edu/publication/FBO52. You know what's a whole lot easier? Foxtail Fern UF. It'll bring that one right up. Oh, now he's sneaking in here. Or, oh no, this is Colby.
Yeah.
Colby. Sorry I couldn't be there today. I did get a great question from a customer today. They have poor drainage under some oak trees with not much sun. Azaleas didn't work for them. What would be a good plant for this situation?
Carolina jasmine.
Okay. I would say the only reason azaleas didn't work is the root structure, maybe, of the trees.
Probably a drainage problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and that compact soil. Because azaleas love to be under oak trees, but you still have to have the right conditions. Yeah, or mulch. That would work. Jasmine, you're right. Jasmine would do very well, and it will become enthusiastic. I like that word. We're going to keep using that. You'll have, with your weed trimmer, you can keep it contained where you want it to be. Just be careful that it doesn't start going up the tree. But some gingers might work. You want to look for something more shallow rooted, because obviously the azaleas didn't work because it became a competition. So caladiums could be an annual to put there. I'm trying to think of other shade loving impatiens. They'll freeze, but they'll probably they come back at least 2 or 3 years. In the third year, they start getting really scraggly.
Bromeliads would be great, but your mosquito people aren't going to like you.
Yeah. Bernie loves his bromeliads.
Hernando. I do. I think bromeliads are one of the nicest plants going. So that shows you what I am as far as a flower person.
You're a no flower person.
Hey, they have got the most beautiful flowers. If you ever get some of these really pretty flowering bromeliads, I mean, they have spikes with multicolors and just, they're gorgeous. I mean, it's not just a little bloom like a rose or something. These are things that
intricate.
Yeah. That's a good word. I like that, intricate.
Or maybe some little mounded dwarf Yopon hollies if you're not looking for flowers. But they might fight with the roots as well. So that would be my suggestion, is something shallow rooted that isn't going to, shade loving, shallow rooted. So look for perennials. That's not a bush, that are shade loving, to try and put under there. Let's see what else we have. There's a blog about adding lime to your grass, as in not adding lime to your grass, that Teresa put up there for us from, looks like Nassau County, wrote about it. Dave, thanks you for the foxtail fern info. And we get smiley faces from Diana. Oh, what do we have here? Thank you. Facebook user is giving us the Latin name for perennial peanut. I assume this is probably a master gardener, whoever this Facebook user is. And several other perennial species of peanuts, which are relatives of the nut-producing peanut, Acarus hypogea. They were introduced to the United States from South America starting in the 1930s. Perennial peanut is not a peanut that you can eat. It is an ornamental ground cover. If you want to see some, wait a couple months and drive down Spring Hill Drive right around Cass Circle, where there's those little old medians there. At least they used to, unless they've taken it out for some reason. That used to be filled with perennial peanut. And I believe the Master Gardener Nursery still has some, don't they, Bernie?
Yeah, they have a small quantity. You know, that is sold in bigger quantities as eco-turf.
Yep.
And it's a fine product. It has a 9 month run where it is a good looking product. If you don't mind the fact that it does get damaged
In the
by
cold.
cold, it
And it looks like
recovers
dead
pretty
lettuce.
quick.
It
Yeah,
looks like dead lettuce out there during the winter. But and I wouldn't say it's going to create a lawn that you can gamble in. And I mean like lambs gambling, not like playing poker on your lawn.
yeah.
I mean, you're not going to walk barefoot on it. It's not, you know, nice lawn that you can have a picnic and roll around in. But same with Sunshine Mimosa. It's a ground cover, but it's not a walk through barefoot kind of thing.
The funny part about it is this thing that a lawn has to be monoculture and
Right.
all one thing. Most of us that have moved to Florida in retirement are old enough that we definitely remember four-leaf clovers and going out and doing things in the lawn as a kid. And when you stop and think back about it, there wasn't any monoculture grass.
No.
That was one
Dandelions
of the
were okay. Yeah.
yeah, that is something that was put in our minds by the advertising community, and
Sure.
one of the most successful brainwash jobs done to the American citizens ever, because every guy now believes if he can't have a perfectly green lawn, all monoculture and no weeds, that he's a failure. And of course, my job is to convince him he's a failure so he'll come and
Sure,
listen to me.
that's what marketing is supposed to do. It
Yeah,
tells every woman that she's fat and needs, to, buy this and do that and the other. And it tells every man he's not a real man if he doesn't have a perfect lawn.
yeah, it's really sad. I really miss the lawns where you could go out and find a clover, and there are some clovers that'll grow here, uh, but very few people ever even think about using a clover as a lawn. But there is a white clover that grows here.
Yeah. And there's false dandelions too.
Yeah,
Here's a publication on the firebush that Teresa has snuck on here.
that's
So
a great
again,
plant.
yeah, it is. It's so easy to do, and it takes care of itself. Diana she wants the Sunshine Mimosa to take over. She's close to the Royal Highlands. It's so many microclimates out there that you get closer, like on the east side of Sunshine Grove Road, you're getting a little more loamy, if that's a good word, more substance in your soil, more oak trees and stuff than you are closer to 19. So, and it could have just been my yard. I don't know why it wouldn't take off. I told Bernie this, I couldn't get, what's wrong with me? Passion vine to grow. And it's not that it wouldn't grow. It would only get this big. And it'd start maybe get that big. And then boom, it was down to that big because I found out gopher tortoises like to eat passion vine. So even though I was missing my passion vine growing on my fence like it did when I lived in Brooksville itself, I mean, like a mile from the courthouse in Brooksville, I knew I was at least making that gopher tortoise happy. So if your yard is not feeding something, you just don't have the right kind of yard. So it's not going to look perfect. it's not, if your yard looks perfect, you are not helping the environment. How's that for your?
You're probably cheating on water for one thing.
Yes. Yes, beach sunflower is what it's called, or sometimes it's called June sunflower. It's the same thing. Perhaps Teresa can find its.
About 2 foot tall, yellow
Yeah.
flowers, pretty plant, nice plant.
Mm-hmm. And here's another an Orange County fact sheet about native plants. We're pretty close to Orange County. We can plant the same plants a lot of times. Dave has pine timber that was allowed to grow wild for 30 years, covered in vines. What is the best way to get a crop cover to edge out the weeds in the long term?
Mow it.
Say, Bernard, this is your question.
Well, assuming that it's some acreage and it isn't lawn, I'd go after the vines probably with I can't think of the name of it. Begins with Milestone. Milestone is one of the few products that's successful on skunk vine and on the I love it. I'm having one of those senior days.
Oh, potato vine.
Yeah. It doesn't really work much on potato vine.
Greenbrier?
Not greenbrier. The one that looks like poison ivy. The little
Virginia creeper.
Virginia creeper. There you go. The problem, Virginia creeper, if you've got any in the lawn, it's all over the place. And because it is a vine, as it grows along the ground, it goes a foot, it produces a node, produces some roots, and goes another foot. And you can only kill it back to that node with something like Roundup. So you have an 8-foot vine with 40 nodes that's still left out there. That little vine will just keep coming back. So you need to get rid of the vines and a lot of the other plants. Milestone will do that. Milestone absolutely is not approved for lawns. You cannot use it for lawns. I cannot overemphasize that.
But mow it first, right? And then.
But I would mow it first, and then depends on how dense the trees are, how much what you have for lighting, as to what you can put down, and the thing that's going to happen is the Milestone's going to clean up most of it. There's some native things that will probably work in there. Actually, that's probably a good spot to put in some natives. Little wiregrass clumps.
Wiregrass is what I was thinking of. They love to be with vines. Nice. Yeah. But
it's one of those things. Once you clean up the vines, a lot of that other stuff pretty much takes care of itself. The vines are a serious problem. So
right.
I would mow it.
And it's not going to happen one time. That's the thing. It's a continual effort. Diana says, thank you, and we are fun. She also says hi to Colby. Hi, Colby. Apparently neighbors just walked by. They were good for 49 minutes. I mean, that's pretty good. Teresa's sending us 22 ideas for a low-care, low-cost landscape. So you can look that up. The University of Florida has thousands of publications out there. They're fantastic. That is your best resource. What kind of jasmine? Did you say Asiatic? Or you said Confederate? Either one. Either one would do well. Asiatic is going to be a little shorter and denser. Confederate will grow in a little bit longer strips.
Asiatic is nice as just a real low growing ground cover. That does beautiful underneath an oak tree. I like that.
Okay, so we changed our minds to Asiatic jasmine.
I like
It's
them
not
both,
going to give you.
but Asiatic does stay down nice. It stays nice and low.
It's not going to give you any jasmine fragrance though,
No.
but it'll stay dark, dark, dark green all year.
Hmm.
Look really good. Here we have our producer, uh, Teresa, giving us a cover crop publication. Again, from the University of Florida. What this stands for is
That's
something.
pasture type ground
Yeah.
cover, if I remember right.
Well, agriculture cover crops. So she was speaking to the gentleman who had the pine forest, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably going to cover pine forest.
They've seen some while driving around. I've
Can
lost
we
track
take
of what.
cuttings?
Jasmine,
Hey,
maybe?
always take cuttings. You know, if they don't work, you're not out anything. And if they do work, you got a free plant. I
But
can
don't
tell
take
you some
cutting
stories.
from the roadside flocks because you will be arrested.
I
That's protected wildflowers. It's
I
nice as they look.
took a group of master gardeners and we went to Lou Gardens over in Orlando. And I was kind of embarrassed because a couple of the guys took some plastic bags and scissors and took
Oh,
cuttings in an area where they probably shouldn't have done it. And the head of Blue Gardens gave a speech, and he said, "I've been thrown out of more of these places than you can imagine." He said, "I always take my little plastic bags, and if there's something I like, I take cuttings." He said, "Any place you go and there's a plant you need," he said, "just take a cutting." And I thought, you shouldn't be telling people that. So
yeah.
I'm not telling you that.
And
But
a cutting is this big, by the way. A cutting is
now
not.
don't take a limb.
Yeah. I did that
Nobody's
recently.
going to miss a leaf
The
or a little tiny
cutting
piece.
I most recently took was from one of my mother's Swedish ivies, but she's been gone since 08. But I had already, some of her babies of her Swedish ivies. Well, remember, I moved. So I gave one of those to my daughter here in Florida. And when I went by her house to pick up some mail the other day, I'm just like, there's another piece of that Swedish ivy again. That was my mother's and mine, and I reappropriated some of it, and now I have it growing in a tiny little pot. I'll be leaving again, so I'll see if it can make the trip. Otherwise, I know where I can get more. But see, that's the only cutting taking I did was actually from what was originally my own plant. Colby's telling us the banks on the main loop at the Wellington have lots of perennial peanut, and that is a great implementation of that plant. So there's another place where you can go and check out what it looks like. Teresa's giving us landscaping for shade. There we go. I mean, UF just has the answer for everything. Also a publication on white clover. How does she do this fast? She's got super duper fingers.
Well, she's sitting in there thinking, what are these idiots going to come up with next? I'm amazed that she does that.
And this is entirely unscripted, completely unscripted. She sits there and she listens, she hears a word, and she's on it. Ground covers for shade. And if you would like these links sent to you, email Bill. I'll show you his email in a little bit. And he might forward it on to Teresa. I think hers is twegler's@ufl.edu if you wanted to directly ask Teresa for these links. There it is. The debilish helianthus is the beach sunflower. So, Dave, thanks you for the pine lot answer. We'll research potato vine and clump grass cover. You don't want to put in potato vine, Dave.
No,
Didn't mean to say that if we accidentally did. The potato vine is a horrible invasive vine. If you have it, you're trying to get rid of it, you gotta, aside from taking care of the vines, you have to pick up all those potatoes. And if wherever you are, if they don't have a potato vine beetle program going on, email Bill about that, and he can hopefully, he's got the right contacts at the university, maybe to release some in your area because they're very helpful with that.
Yeah, there's a beetle that is controlling potato vine. It's not
Yes,
eliminating it, but it's controlling it.
exactly.
If you want to eliminate it, it's one of those things where you have to cut the vine. Uh, at about 3 feet, you paint the 3 feet of remaining vine with Garlon, which will work into the system and be a
Yeah,
systemic kill. And then you
can
have to get all the potatoes. Well, it's going to take you hours of work, and it's going to take you 3 years to get them all. So
can
it's just
regular
best not to
citizens,
have that problem.
regular citizens can buy that?
What, Garlon?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I was almost said, can humans buy that?
Garlon is the triclopyr.
Yes.
Chemical.
Don't go into highway medians and get a cutting. And I was serious about the highway phlox. Gosh, they're gorgeous this year, aren't they, Bernie? Have you noticed? I mean, even
Yeah,
you have
they're just
seen.
now coming out really pretty.
Yes,
You know,
that's
if,
the
if,
purple. Mm-hmm.
if you're going to take cuttings, you have to have a little common sense. There are places where it's obviously illegal to do anything. You cannot go on government property
You can't
and
go on any
start hacking
property
away.
without permission either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Anju, oh, she had a fangirl moment. She got to meet Dr. Lester at Tavares. Well, I'm sure he was very happy to meet one of his biggest fans. Here's another publication on invasive vines. And Dave says, great info, thanks. Teresa is great. She is. She runs this whole thing. You know that.
Yeah.
She does.
She's the brains behind the operation. In fact, she's probably the only brains in the building. But other than that,
Oh, Dave says potato vine is his problem. Yeah. Where do you live, Dave? Because if you live around here, we do have potato beetles, air potato beetles in our area, and they're not going to really start. You're not going to see their work till end of June.
Late July.
Yeah, yeah, and then you will see the leaves have holes all through them. What they're doing now is they're starting to wake up, and they're starting to look at their partners amorously, and they're starting to be like, "Hey, why don't we start a family?" So that's what's happening now because it's spring, and then when the babies grow up a little, that's what they're going to do mid to late June. Start eating holes in your air potato leaves, and then they will skeletonize them basically and greatly reduce the vines. As Bernie says, they're not going to eradicate them. Why would a species eradicate their baby's food? So they're going to, but they have helped tremendously. So we're almost running out of time. We still have questions. Susan says she has many times searched for people wanting English ivy for the long, dramatic interior wall or high shelf to cathedral type ceilings. She remembers seeing it used that way, and she has a free 12 to 20 foot long if anyone wants to hang it inside. English ivy is pretty invasive as well. Maybe not so much in Florida, but up north it's considered on one of the high lists of invasive plants. And I can tell you that from experience now. We bought this house in Pennsylvania. The lady who lived there she at one time had a beautiful yard. but she wasn't able to get out of the house for 15 years. So I can tell you, English ivy is going to be one of my nemesis because it's everywhere. That and trumpet vine. So one of those cases where when humans interfere, a native plant can become invasive. It's definitely what's happened there. And honeysuckle, and she has bamboo. So we're just going to go home and like take everything down and, start all over again. So, is pine bark best for mulching around the base of shrubs? I don't know if it's best, but it is good. It's a great one.
It's my favorite mulch.
Yeah, me too.
I really like pine bark.
I like the big chunky ones because they last a long time, and that's cost effective. and
the powdery stuff becomes a really good organic material in the soil really quick. This stuff lasts, the big chunks last a long time. The rest of it disappears pretty quick, but it's a great mulch, makes a great path mulch. So, and it's relatively inexpensive. By the way, potting soil with pine bark is as its basis works better for most people than the ones with sphagnum moss, because sphagnum moss, if it dries out, it's very, very difficult to get re-wetted.
I've never had any luck with that. Yeah.
And it's so much easier to work with pine bark mulch. I don't know. I probably shouldn't mention the name Jungle Grow because I'm not supposed to mention product names, but
the jury will disregard that statement.
Yeah, but that mulch is based on pine bark instead of sphagnum moss.
Okay, Diana,
it's pH.
Yep, I just wrote it in there. pH, LOX. When you go out driving anywhere this time of year, go down or east on 50. Oh, go east on 50. Go towards the interstate. It'll knock your socks off. These beautiful purple, pink, and some white flowers. They are pH, LOX, phlox. There are native phlox. What you see on the side of the road are not native. They are the Texas cousins, because they are going to do better as far as what we want for them, that widespread, incredible carpet look. It's originally it started out as part of the Lady Bird Johnson roadside wildflower program. And they are protected wildflowers, even though they are non-native Texas cousins. They are Phloxdramundi. See, I remember that native name. I am so in love with them. I have some pictures I took of them. They're fantastic. And I guess the statute of limitations has, expired. So I can tell you, I was young.
Oh, no.
Very, very young, getting married. And I did not know any better. And, we didn't have much money or anything. So the day before my wedding, went and picked a bouquet of phlox. That was my bouquet. Don't do that. I know better now. But so that's what I think of when I see the phlox. Aside from the gorgeousness, you don't even have to go all the way east if you live in Spring Hill. Go up 19. Go towards Weeki Wachee High School. You'll see them.
There is a special program to get wildflower seeds.
Yes, thank you. I was going to bring that up. And I bet you Teresa can give us that link. The Florida Wildflower Cooperative. If you look that up, you can buy the seeds so that you can maybe, have them in your yard where you want them. We're running over, but Dave is in Sumter County with his pine forest. So, everything we told you will still have a good effect. What do we have here? Control of air potato. Anne Marie says blueberries love pine bark. They don't just love it, they need it. Because if you're going to try to grow blueberries, you're going to have them in a pot or in a big mound, and it'd be almost entirely pine bark because they need like a what, 4 something pH?
They need around 5. So
Okay. Choosing and installing mulches. And if you go to Hernando County Government YouTube, you will. I'm trying to. What am I doing here? You will see, if you go to Florida Friendly Landscaping, you'll see a whole bunch of videos that will. Some of them are about mulch, and also on Hernando County Extensions YouTube, which is in the same place under Hernando County Government YouTube.
From a purely ecological standpoint, cedar mulch or cypress mulch is probably the worst because they just chop down the cypress trees and turn them into mulch. By the same token, eucalyptus mulch, which has probably the best insect retardant, is the finest mulch because the eucalyptus trees are a real pain and we want them cut down and turned into mulch. So if eucalyptus mulch is available and you want something that's ecologically friendly, eucalyptus mulch is the way to go. Never buy cypress mulch because they're ruining all the cypress forests. In fact, some of the mulch companies have promised now not to use any trees south of Interstate 10 because all the trees south of Interstate 10 have pretty well been decimated now. And
yes, that the cypress mulch won't hurt your yard. It hurts the environment when you purchase cypress mulch.
But eucalyptus mulch has, and when they tell you that these mulches are termite resistant, they're not very resistant, but eucalyptus mulch is the most resistant, which probably means it discourages 1 out of 1,000 termites.
Yeah.
But putting mulch right up against your house is an invitation to termites.
Melaleuca mulch is also a good thing to use.
That's what I meant. Melaleuca mulch. Melaleuca is the trees we want to get rid of. So buy Melaleuca. Get the Melaleuca.
Eucalyptus is fine too. They grow the eucalyptus trees on sustainable branches, just like pine. But Melaleuca is, what you were referring to is the punk tree from South Florida. So it's a good idea to get rid of them, use them for something functional, and they do make a great mulch, and they do have a little bit longer of termite resistance than maybe some of the others. We are running.
Melaleuca trees really consume the water, so they put in all the trees to dry up the swamp, and actually we're better off to keep the swamp. It maintains the environment. So
absolutely,
we have destroyed the environment here. So buying Melaleuca mulch improves our environment. So thank you.
Yes. Teresa says, help save our beautiful and environmentally valuable native cypress. Spread the word and spread the right kinds of mulch. I think that is a very good statement to end with since we're running over time. See, Bernie, we do a great job. I think there should be a spinoff of the virtual plant clinic called the Lily and Bernie Show. What do you think? Under the Bernie and Lily Show. We'll do that. And before we go, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to thank the people that responded. The more response we get from the audience, the better the program goes.
Yeah, because we can sit around.
Very, very good today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We can sit around and talk to each other anytime. We need your input for this program to work. And we thank you. Yes, thank you always to Teresa. I want to share this before we go. Not showing up, is it?
No.
Well, never mind then. Well, Why isn't it showing up now? Because Bill moved it. Oh well. It was a picture of I better stop playing with it. It's a picture of a bunch of baby lubber grasshoppers all over a big clump of Spanish moss. It's just something I hadn't seen before. They really liked it. I would not have noticed it if my puppy didn't notice it. He wanted to eat the lubbers. But speaking of my puppy, he's been so good eating this Easter ham bone that I luckily had here. So, and now he's looking at me like he wants to go outside, and we're running overtime. So, with that, I for sure will not be able to be here next week. I'll be on the road, but I'm sure Bernie will be here, and perhaps we can get Colby back in some manner, even if he has to come over to your office. And maybe we'll even have Dr. Lester for Dr. Lester's virtual plant clinic. He's turning into Johnny Carson here, isn't he, Bernie? He's not here more than he's here. He's a busy, busy man. He's very busy. All right. It's good to see you, Bernie.
It's been a pleasure, Lily.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. I had a great time.